Thank you everyone for joining us today for the sales questions every advisor should be asking webinar produced by the ISPA. And thank you, go-to-market sales coach extraordinaire, Joe, for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here. I love hanging out with you guys.
Excellent. And I'm Kendall Rawls with the International Succession Planning Association. And the purpose of this webinar is to provide you guys some insights on questions that everyone generally asks questions, but are you asking the right questions to be able to dig deeper with your clients, build a rapport that's required for trust, because as business advisors, we're often tap dancing around some pretty sensitive topics, fear of giving up control, or I mean, just a variety of fears in terms of financial security, business success, family dynamics, family harmony, especially in this ever-evolving world of change. And so our goal today is to provide you some powerful insights on the types of questions that you should be asking, active listening, reframing questions. So you're helping shepherd and guide your clients to fulfill their dreams, fulfill their goals that they've communicated with you. So that's the purpose of the webinar. And I'm now going to kick it over to Joe to take it to the next level.
Let's rock and roll. You know, I do sales training and coaching with companies all over the world. And I often do a lot of stuff on questions and helping people. Basically, we're trying to cognitively reframe, getting people to rethink how they look at it. If we can get people to think differently about themselves and their business, they're going to think differently about us. The story I like to share is, I think I might have told you about this, Kendall, but always when it gets to questions, this is a good one. Have you ever heard of the Love Lab at University of Washington? Did I tell about that?
I don't know about it.
Yeah, so University of Washington years ago, it was called a Love Lab, and there was this professor. He was trying to determine what made successful relationships, and what he found is that couples every relationship, and this applies to sales, is they do these things called bids. They're little outreaches to say, hey, look at this. You know, I experienced this today, or I heard something on the news, or I heard this song, or I like this, something like that. And the couples that succeeded and were have positive relationships, they responded about 80% of their partner's bids. And the couples that failed were only about 17%. And so there was an example that they gave, which was like a man and a woman. They're out looking out into the, like, off the deck. And the woman says, hey, look at how beautiful those trees are. And so when I do this presentation, I always ask, you know, what is a typical response from a man when she says, look at how beautiful those trees are? What's a typical response?
Add it to the chat.
Yeah, add it to the chat.
Just some,
what do you think?
some thoughts.
What would a guy say typically? Look how beautiful those trees are. What does he say?
He's
got, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So
no,
great.
You're so beautiful, baby, right? What's for dinner?
What's for dinner?
Yeah. Not as beautiful as you, my dear, right?
Yeah.
Let me see if you guys can get this. There's a specific, because now that what trees, yeah. Right. So yeah, nice trees. The good job, guys. What should he say? She says, look at how beautiful those trees are. And I'm looking for a specific answer. What do you think he should say?
What makes them beautiful to you?
Yeah. Not as beautiful as you. Wayne's got it dialed. I like it. What the typical the technical answer to that is, what about those trees do you find beautiful? Because she says, look at how beautiful those trees. What about those trees do you find beautiful? I use this as a training because it allows us to look at everything we look at. So if somebody says, hey, I'm just nervous about making this change. What about that change are you nervous about? Right? We've never done that before, so I'm not sure how it works. Well, what about it aren't you sure about? So we use the ability to listen to what people are saying and pay attention. And when we use their specific words back to them, it shows that we've been listening, it shows we're attending to their story, and it shows that we're paying attention and we can help them solve something. But often what we do is it's like, we'll go back to the husband and wife walks home or comes home and says, I had a bad day. We say, hey, how about I just solve it for you this way? That doesn't work. We have to ask questions, what's going on, and then we have to dig deeper. And this is really what questions are about. When we look at sales, I think often we're getting into that mode where we're listening for something, so it's our turn to jump in and try and solve. when we rush to solve, that's where we run into a lot of challenges. I think a lot of people struggle with that. So today I want to talk about how we can structure questions, and then Kendall's going to show us some examples of questions that we can use and why we use them. And what we're going to be sharing with you is actually one of the documents that we have available for download. And we thought, why not actually walk you guys through this so you know how to use it? You guys can download it off either inside the course, or we'll send you a link with it afterwards. So Kendall's going to share that. We'll just start going through it and working through it. And I think we're probably doing about 20 minutes or so here. We're going to rock and roll. Yeah.
Yeah. And while I'm doing that, I think what's so cool about questions too is that, whoops, I need to actually share first. Is that you can share your expertise through questions without telling them. So the types of questions you ask, how deep, and how you're able to peel back the onion of going deeper of what about those trees do you find beautiful? And then asking, I mean, if you're trying to share a scientific expertise, then asking something around science that then shows, oh, you have that background, versus having to tell them how smart you are, because no one really cares how smart you are. They really care about how you can impact their lives.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's always about, it's not me versus you, it's you and me against the problem, right? And so we're trying to figure out a way to get somebody thinking differently. And also, while you're doing that, a lot of this stuff, there's a lot of good books. One of the original ones is Spin Selling. It's a whole way of asking questions. I think we talk about it a little bit, but it's ways that we can ask questions, how to build insights. A big thing is connecting to stories as well. So if you're going to do really well, try and find a way to ask good questions, share really good insights, and then utilize stories, examples, proof to support what you're doing. So this is, I do a lot of reviews on sales calls. I do a lot of reviews on how people do interactions, presentations, and these, I call these the two pivots. And again, this thing you can download. These are the two pivots. We either miss an opportunity to ask the best question, not just a question, but the best question. That's why it's important. What about those trees do you find beautiful? So somebody's sharing something with you, and in that moment, we're thinking about the other thing we want to do, or we ask them a question that's not related. We throw off that momentum. So if we know the specific question to dig deeper, we're better. There's a term, actually, I got it out of this book, Subliminal. It's about subconscious communication. There's a term that I love, and it's called confabulation. And that term is all about the humans, our natural tendency to answer what somebody asks us with what we think they want to hear. It's just the way we're drilled as a society. So if you ask somebody a question, most likely the first thing they tell you is not really what's going on. They're just going to, like, if you say, hey, what did you like about that party? I like the people. That's probably not what they like most about that party. Right? But that's what we're trained to say. So we have to ask the best question. And also, we got to be careful. I call it the love triangle. It's between me, you, and the information. I guess a lot of relationship stuff today. Me, you, and the information. It's if I give you the information that you start to pay attention to outside of what we're doing, you're not going to pay attention to me. So you got to be careful that you don't overwhelm and you don't share too much, or you share the wrong information at the wrong time. So those are two things to be careful for in your conversations. Next one. Yeah.
I'm working on it. Oops, sorry guys.
You're doing great.
Okay.
Okay, so this one, this is why, did I have this? So what you're trying to do, the exploratory questions are really just to find out what direction to take things. So it's not about small talk, but it's about, and like the way that they structure spin selling is we're going to ask what's called a situation question. We're going to find out what's going on. What's this? How long you been doing this? These are all kind of the details to figure out what you need to navigate. Then you're going to ask problem questions that are like, okay, so why is it a problem? What's been happening? What's that causing? The key to this stuff is that you're taking notes, as it says here, and that so I'm excited about, I'm nervous about, I've been toying with the idea, I was thinking about making a change, all of those words. So what about that change have you been thinking about? What about that thing are you excited about? See how that works, right? So now you go into the next level here. Step 3.
Me? Sorry.
Yeah, that's you. Is where we're going to ask those expanding questions. And what makes you excited about that? Okay, sounds like you moved from toying to serious. How is that happening? Hey, all, can you please share your advisory expertise? Oh, that's you. And that's somebody else. And so we're taking notes. And now what we're doing is going to do a reframing. And so you see at the bottom of this page, we're trying to lead them to our offer rather than with our offer. So with spin selling, one of the things that is important to this methodology is the letter I. Oh, I got that. Is implication questions or reframing questions. And these are ways that we're saying, what is the cause and effect of what's happening? So if somebody says, I'm nervous about this or this, okay, well, how long has that been affecting you? Who else is involved because of this? How much does that cost you? How much time does that take? How much of a pain in the butt has that been for you? We're trying to figure out, because of this thing, what else is going on? How is that connected to sort of the whole system? Because most of the time, if you're, especially if you're trying to make an offer for services or you're trying to help them, if you, again, rush to solve it, you might be not weighing it properly. Because if somebody just says, here's my problem, and you say, okay, we can solve it like this, and this is what it costs, the costs might outweigh the problem, that fear of change. But if you add the implication, the reframing questions, then what's going to happen is they're going to go, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. Yeah, that is a bigger problem than I thought, or that is more complex than I thought. I think this is more important for me to solve, and it's much more likely you're going to be able to move them forward. And so now that's really why these questions are important. Is it's not good enough just to ask a question, answer, ask a question, answer. If you get in like a Q&A session, you're going to be having a hard time. So you're trying to ask questions to find out where you need to take things and where the real problems are. Ken, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to level 1 questions, things that I like to focus on are, what are your goals? What if things, if you could paint the perfect picture, what would your the next 5, 10, 15 years look like? And then what do you feel are getting in your way? Those, to me, from an advisory perspective, can provide some really great clues for you then to dig in deeper. Okay, what about A, B, or C from a struggle perspective, or you feel is getting in the way? Tell me more about that. And then you can ask whether it's a family dynamic issue, a family business issue, whatever it is. You can then pull in all the different questions as it relates to the succession matrix, which we'll get into, which is a core philosophy of the ISPA. But starting really high, and then, as Joe mentioned, using their words to go deeper. Please tell me more about that. Tell me where some of those feelings are come from. Is what creates this concern for you, and really digging into a lot of the interpersonal dynamics and feelings will help you then create strategies to help you guide them and overcome some of those obstacles.
Absolutely. Oh, this is Kendall's section. I like this. We in this guide, we've got a bunch of questions. I think, through the matrix, I think that's where we came up with these, is through the matrix, trying to figure out some ways that from the succession planning lens, that you could ask some questions to get the conversation started. So kind of walk us through.
Yeah, and before I do that, please, if you have anything that you're really wanting to get out of this conversation, that you feel is a roadblock for you and interacting with business owners or clients from a question perspective or communication perspective, please share that in the discussion so we can really tailor this conversation to you. Otherwise, we're kind of guessing and just going to talk high level. So please just share what your goals are, some of your struggles are in the chat, and we can really tailor what we're talking about. So on the page that we're talking, or that focusing on the screen now, these are just a list of 5, there's 12 questions here in the download. And what we've done is we've focused, and I'm gonna scroll up a little bit to an image of the matrix. So if you get sick while looking at moving screens, close your eyes for a second. But if you download this document from our website, the 12 questions featured here help connect each area of this matrix in conversation. Oftentimes, what we find is business owners, because of how succession planning has been marketed in the marketplace as estate planning, financial planning, technical stuff, they really think more technical estate planning, financial planning versus business stuff as it impacts the future for succession planning. And so as a business advisor, one, you miss a ton of opportunity if you just focus on what the business owner wants to focus on. They're not the expert in this, you guys are. And so by asking, I would say, needs payoff from the spin selling perspective, or implication questions from the spin selling perspective, you're able to interweave a diversity of topics into one question very expertly letting the business owner know that one, succession planning is not just about the technical financial estate planning dynamics. It has to do with business performance. It has to do with the strength of the leadership team and help guide them to get a broader understanding of one, the value you can bring and the multitude of concerns that they need to be focusing on.
Good questions here. Jeff's got a good one. The opinion is the questions that open the conversation discussion for the need of succession planning. One of the things that I've done a lot of training on is with spin selling. This methodology was done in 1988. A guy named Neil Rackham, and actually on my YouTube channel, I outrank this author on YouTube views. So, but this book, this was like during the era of like consultative selling and relationship selling. And so what they were finding, like this works really, really well. But in today's world, you can't just sit down and just interrogate people and do all this kind of stuff. What we try and train on is how do you sort of spin sell your customer before you talk to them? How do you sort of look at their business in a way that you could bring in insights? So what Jeff's asking is, how do we sort of steer them towards sort of succession planning? If we understand where their current business is at, we need to sort of think about what are all the cause and effect things that are going on and create some assumptions, create some insights so that when we're talking to them, we're going to ask questions. So if their concern is about, the budget or the sales, but we know the real challenge is most likely the family dynamics or the governance or how they're setting things up. And maybe whether they're doing an exit or whether they're handing things off or whether they're bringing kids in, whatever that is, we know their challenge is going to be there. So we have to think about the questions that will steer that conversation. Again, that's why the implication questions are things like, what are the bottlenecks? Who else is affected? How much time does that take? What are the additional costs? How much of a hassle? What does this person think? If we do this, then what happens? If we don't do this, what happens? We're trying to really get them to go, you know what? I wasn't thinking about that. And again, if we get them to go, now we're in a better place. But if you're just answering what they want, and I would ask you guys, how many times are you dealing with one of your clients and that there's a better way to approach this? Our job is to ask the questions to get them there, not tell them where they should go. Hope that helps them.
Yeah, and I would say oftentimes clients may come to a conversation asking completely, you understand where they're wanting to go, and they're asking the questions that are not the right questions, and they're not thinking the right way based upon where they're wanting to go. And so as the advisor, as Joe mentioned, asking their questions to get them on another train track, essentially, they need to completely switch tracks to think about their situation and their business differently in order for them to get there.
Yeah.
And so that's also a critical one, understanding the comprehensive nature of business succession, of business value, as it relates to the people involved, the leadership team, whether it's a traditional family business or not, meaning blood related. There's interpersonal dynamics and baggage happening in a partnership. So what are all the underlying dynamics happening that's going to impact the ongoing success of this business? And approaching the conversation from an incredibly curious perspective also, I think, is because a business owner and a client can know that if you're incredibly curious about it from a standpoint of wanting to help versus wanting to interrogate to create the sale, is also helps create that rapport.
Yeah. We got about 8 minutes here. So do you want to open up those questions? We've got those 12 questions. And one of the first question there I was just thinking about, do you hope to gain on this in 1 meeting? No, you know what, I think Wayne's question is, do you hope to gain all this insight in one meeting with the owner? A lot of times people are trying to go and do too many things, go wide with their questions. What we're trying to do is figure out a couple talk tracks that we know. So for me, when I do like pre-call planning or when I train on pre-call planning, I'm really trying to think about what's going on in their world and where do I want to try and steer that conversation that's going to have the best impact. Which means if I can get them to think differently about this thing, we're in a better position. So my goal in the original interaction is say, okay, I know they think they maybe want this, but I think they might need this. how do I get them from here to here in the time frame we have? So depending on that conversation is important. I had a call with a client on Tuesday, and it started with, hey, we might not continue services because we're changing things up in the budget, and we're maybe looking at changing things for the new year. To by the end of that, she's like, yeah, I've got a meeting set with you for the executive team because I think that's right what you're doing. It was all through questions by changing the way we were looking at, because the approach they were taking didn't make any sense. And so being able to, respectfully challenge them and create tension, ask the right questions to make them go, yeah, we haven't been looking at it that way. Now we can go that direction. But I knew in that before I went to that meeting, that's the direction that conversation needed to go. I needed to create that aha. So that answer, I hope that answers your question, Wayne, is you want to try and think about what are those pivots that you're trying to get to in the conversation. Really design the right dialogue that's going to have a combination of insights and questions to get the owner thinking differently, so you can then carry on the right direction instead of going deeper into the wrong place.
I will say from a prospecting perspective, 100% agree with Joe. What a tool we're about to show you, which is why I'm creating the transition here, is from a data gathering perspective. Before you begin to create the strategies or recommend the strategies for your client, what we recommend is going as deep as you possibly can into all areas of what we call the succession matrix. And I've been using the analogy, which I've been trying to find another one here, because no one really loves to talk about doctors, but it's the same thing about whenever you go to the doctor and there's something that hurts. The doctor wants to do a ton of tests before they diagnose you and then come up with a treatment plan. And so that is what we recommend from a succession planning business advisory perspective. One, because from an advisor perspective, you now have so much information that you're not needing to cross or upsell anymore. You have so much information that you can clearly see between where they are now and where the client wants to go, that you can build a strategy and you facilitate whatever you want within that strategy based upon your core function, and then leverage key partners outside of that. But because you have the information, you know how essentially hold the gold, and you are now positioned as that trusted quarterback advisor. And so the tool that we're wanting to show you now is just a sneak peek into the succession planning assessment, which is one of the tools that is provided through the membership of the ISPA, which is a 260 question assessment. And Joe, if you can keep talking about it as I show the screen, because I can't do two things at once.
What if I was uncomfortably quiet? Would that be good?
You do you. I don't know if anyone on this webinar wants to be uncomfortably quiet.
The thing I like about the succession planning assessment is that, when I first saw it, I thought it's really cool because it does a deep dive and it's very thorough. And what it does is it allows even somebody that's brand new in doing this to have a guide and have sort of a talk track that they can go through. Anytime you can help somebody evaluate, and you're basically now, again, it's not me versus you, it's me and you versus the problem. So let's look at this stuff. Let's go through these things. And the reason I'm asking these questions is, so it's a very cool tool that allows you to focus on the questions that you're working on it together. It doesn't feel like an interrogation.
And then, yeah, as I was trying to show here, oh, here it is, the why this question and dig deeper questions. So the way this is written is, I am not dependent upon the supporting service of the key manager. So that's the business owner is not supportive, but oftentimes the advisor may not know why we're asking this question. So we've built in some insight as additional training, and then dig deeper, because as the advisor providing this assessment to the business owners, you don't want just the answer to that. You want to know why.
Yeah.
You want to know all the circumstances around this question. And so what this does is it, as I mentioned, it goes through, this is just the first module, but it goes through, we can't skip, but each area of the matrix. So you're getting a deep dive into what's their motivation or wanting to take on the risk of this business, all the way to how does your family dynamics impact this? And so whether you use the SPA or not, what we're recommending is, as a onboarding process, is to create a system of really deep questions. And what the SBA provides is, I mean, this has been built over 50 years of experience with a variety of advisors collaborating on how to build this. So this is a true trusted tool that's been used and has been able to create a lot of excellent results for advisors who are wanting to grow their practice. So this is one of many tools that you can lean on.
Yeah.
What,
And, Wayne, yeah, so, and I just loaded, if you guys, Kendall, you can open that too if you want.
oh yeah,
There's the GIF or GIF of what the report looks like. It's a little blurry because it's on the website, but that's, you can even,
I'm gonna open another one because that one makes me want to throw up.
all right. Yeah,
I'm
the
gonna
report's very
stop
cool.
share real fast just so you
Yeah.
don't see my mess.
What I like is actually is when I saw how it was presented, the cool thing about the report is you can now take somebody through these questions and you can then kind of create a bit of an experience by at the end you say, okay, great. Here's what we found. Here's what's going on. Now let's book another appointment so we can review the report. And so then we could go through the action plan. We can say what's going on. Here's where you're strong. Here's where you're weak. Here's what I suggest we do. And so it's not, then you're less and less trying to make it a sales pitch and versus here's what we've uncovered together. Do you agree on this action plan? Anytime you can do it as like that collaborative evaluation, it's really good. And as Kendall was showing you the tool tips there, that follows in alignment with what we're talking about with the questions, is we're asking this question, explaining why we're asking that question, why that matters to their business, what's the impact for them. And now that they share this with us, okay, because of that, what else? What we're looking for as you're building all of your process, especially in sales, is we're looking for, if they do this, then we do this. So when you're identifying language and phrases, you go, oh, every time I hear them say this, this is how I approach that.
So I'm going to scroll. There's a lot of intro stuff, so I'm just going to scroll slowly so no one gets sick. But what the report does is it provides a global succession planning positioning score. So based upon how the questions were answered, this business has a 63% global succession planning positioning score. And there's a ranking here, so it'll show them if they're under whatever this number, 60 or so, they really need to work on shoring up their business for stability. And then what's really cool about this is that it provides a individual score on each area of the matrix. So from a visual perspective, oftentimes consulting can feel very, I think the best word I can think of is esoteric. Like it's just, you can't really grasp anything. So what this provides for the business owner is something that's really visual and that they can wrap their arms around. We have tested this, and what's been really great too is that we'll do this in the very beginning of a business engagement, and then 3 or 4 years later, we'll redo this. And what it also does is it shows the business owner all the work that they've been doing and the investment that they put into this. They've made some progress. And then the next part of the report that's incredibly powerful is that it'll provide action steps. So this begins to act as the roadmap for facilitating consulting engagements and working with business owners. And we can email this to you as well, Wayne, so you could have a copy of this to go through. Joe, what else you got?
Yeah, and so on that other guide, we have a list of like 12 questions. I mean, these are all things that can get you started on so I think that is what the 12 succession plan questions guide there is, just some questions that can get you going. But again, these are questions that you're starting with. It's not, there's no silver bullet, there's no magic question that gets everything uncovered. What you're trying to do is figure out how to ask some questions. So these actually, when you look at the 12 questions, you want to share that, Kendall? That one again, I think the PowerPoint.
Sure. Stop share.
Yeah. When you ask those questions, each one of those is kind of designed for a different area of the matrix too. So if you're talking to somebody and you're saying, okay, well, I wonder how I can maybe move them. I think that's page 9. Yeah, you got it. So the question, so when you ask them the question about goals, so I know a lot of times, if I'm talking to somebody about, say, comp plans, I'll say, well, before we start talking about your comp plans, let's talk about your company goal. Because often there's a misalignment between this and this, because if they take you too deep into the specific tactic of it, you're going to miss getting back into more of the strategy side. And so looking at these questions, are you confident, your actions, your attitudes, right path? Are you confident in your team? All of these questions are designed to help you move from where you are to somewhere else. And so if you say, I know that probably the challenge might be in their management team, so I have to figure out a question to take them there. So let's say, where's it? Let's look. I'm gonna look on mine. Long-term goal policy. Where's the one? Where was it? There was one here. Yeah, like question 10, what specific characteristics are essential to effectively perpetuate organization culture and lead the business? And you're going to kind of see, are you a good role model? Who do you have? Are you confident that even in an environment, question number 8, your key managers will continue to support this? So if they're telling you this is all the stuff I want and they're focused on maybe the revenue side of it, then I know that there might be a manager issue. We're talking about succession planning. I would ask them, let me ask you about this. How do your managers feel about this? What do they think about this? What's happened to them? How are they going to embrace this? What do you think? What happens if you're not there? What do they do? If you don't do this, what happens? If you do this, what happens? That's a way to start to lead them to the other side of the framework. And
Excellent.
Wayne's question, how long do you guys usually take for an assessment?
I would say an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Oh.
A large part of it has to do with the additional discussion that the advisor is able to create in the environment.
Yeah.
And sometimes, depending upon the day, and how you want to roll it out, you could do it over a couple sessions. There's flexibility with that.
Yeah. I was just sharing this week because we're talking about like value added tools. I have a bunch of companies I'm working with. And one of the things I shared is we used to do an assessment for like selling educational services for like colleges. And it's very similar, not as cool, but it was a spreadsheet. I'd take them through it. We just go, hey, let's go through this. These are all the comparisons to best practices. And that's kind of what this is as well. Is you're saying, how do you guys do that? Oh, okay. Well, best practice in that area is this best practice. And they go, oh, you know what? Actually, we're not doing all the things that we thought we were. This makes a lot of sense. I think we need to really think this through. And so by doing that evaluation, by giving them a score, working them through that, you're helping them see where the gaps, the roadblocks, the landmines might be. And you know what, Wayne, I would imagine it's overwhelming, especially when it feels like, oh man, I know I'm not doing enough. So you say, cool, now we've covered it all. How do we drill it down and get started? That there's lots to do, but there's lots of time. Phase 1 looks like this, phase 2, phase 3, and kind of map it out. So, we're going to start here and it's manageable. The risk is you can mitigate that risk.
Yeah, a lot of it just how the assessment and data gathering process is framed for the client or the business owner, in the sense of, we're going to go through, I want to sit down with you for a couple hours. I really want to get a deep understanding of what your goals are and what is impacting those goals from a family management, technical perspective. This will take, as I mentioned, a couple hours, but what this is going to do is set us both up for success and developing a strategy, holistic strategy. What I often find working with people who are very narrow in their questions, from a CPA, estate planning attorney, is that the business owner suffers from great strategy and planning because they're not, the advisor is not asking enough questions. And at the same time, the advisor is suffering because they're not able to facilitate and provide all the value that they can. So it's all about framing. And another question we got is, how much can you charge a client for it? It's up to you. So you could charge, we have some people charging 2,500, we have some charging 4,500. As Joe said, it's what this is a platform for you to create an experience around. It's incredibly educational for a business owner to think. These questions make them think a lot broader and more strategic. So it's not just the assessment, it's the experience that you create around it.
And also in part of the membership area, we have created some sample proposals, some offers, some templates that you can use. And often with this, you can think about, we've got a couple of people we've been working with that they are looking at it in phases. So they can either sell it as a full year-long package where we're going to start here, we're going to do this, we're going to do a report, we're going to work on this, action plan implementation, or we can just do the evaluation, we can do the assessment, you can get a report. So you could start with that and charge a couple grand, $5,000 to get them a report, get them a tool, and get them an action plan. But then if you want help implementing it, then you could charge a monthly fee, you could do retainers, you do yearly. This could go from a $2,000 thing to a 6-figure deal very easily based on how you structure it. And so depending on your experience, the level of ability to serve your clients, it really depends on what kind of a contract you can put together. But we've got samples for you.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, and another question, how do we charge for the ISBA? It's subscription member based, so it's either a monthly or a yearly fee. I think the monthly is around 200 something and the yearly is right under $2,000.
Yeah.
And the goal of the ISBA is to provide tools and templates and things like that that you can facilitate, as Joe said, 100 grand engagements, and continue to be able to leverage these tools with multiple clients.
Yep. And you get access to all the technology. We also have a whole bunch of training in the Snap area where you're going to learn how to do marketing, sales, resources. So we really want to focus on like implementation. You get your certified succession planner certification, you get all the resources, and now you have basically this arsenal of tools at your disposal, so you can just go and serve your clients.
Yep. Yeah. So Wayne or anyone else on the call, if you have any additional questions, we're also offering for very limited. Yeah, it's excellent. We're also offering for a very limited time white glove service. So you get a few one-on-one calls with Joe and I of how to effectively integrate these tools, integrate these thinking, these questions, the philosophy as a member into your practice. So please feel free to reach out to Joe or I for additional questions. I think
good stuff today. Questions,
yeah.
Good questions. I love it.
I know, questions bring questions.
You guys dig deeper. Oh, look at this. I love it. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah. All right, so are we going to wrap this up?
I think so.
All right. Well,
thanks everybody for coming, and reach out to us if you need anything. That was awesome. Good questions, Jeff, Wayne, Phil, Chrissy. Great work. I love it. Kevin, good work. I had fun.
You too, Joe.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.